Hello and welcome to the Rugby Chat show brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul. And is rugby just legalised cheating? That's the topic for today, and we're going to be talking a lot about that. And joining me, because it's obviously I'm saying we, and here I am, we've just been the only guy on the screen, is Ashwin. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, reporting in from our remote studios here in Mount Roskill. Looking forward to bringing you the show here from Mount Roskill today, out in the field.
There we go. And he's, resplendently dressed in his Auckland jersey, which I went and said, is that this year's? And then he showed me the sleeve. So give us a quick flash of the sleeve.
Is that a good idea?
Yeah, go on. ITM Cup. It's not been the ITM Cup for at least 3 years.
Was it 3 years, is it? I'm a cheap Indian and now I'm unemployed.
Don't worry, I've got until November the 16th is my last day of employment. We can both be unemployed together. We can both be homeless, sleeping in a car.
I think it's a refrigerator box under a bridge.
You've got a bigger. Yeah, I've got a bigger car than you. So I get more comfort. Anyway, that's slightly on a tangent there.
We always do.
Cheers, sir. We'll see. So real men drink pink stuff. So that's and Ashwin drinks. So, Good George, local brewery here in Hamilton. This is their Doris cider, so plum cider. And I'm sure Mr. George is watching. So, Mr. George, thank you very much. And please do sponsor us. There we go. Is rugby just legalised cheating? Do you want to have a first crack, or shall I throw, or do you want me to?
Well, it's your sort of topic, so to speak. So I thought I might let you lead off, so I can sort of like add to it, and then disagree really badly with you.
Easy for you to say, sir. So yes, this is a topic we had. For those of you that remember when we used to have 5 questions or 5 hot topics, was that that basically this was one that we had at the bottom of the list we never got around to talking about. So I thought, you know what, here's a good week for us to chat about this one. And basically, my thought here is there a sport where cheating is more acceptable than rugby? And here we are talking about rugby as being this sport of values, of virtue, and yet we sort of we even give it special names to make it not sound like it's cheating. So we had like the dark arts by the forwards, which basically meant cheating where people can't see you in the bottom of a pile of bodies. We then and we used to say, oh, this guy's a good player in the dark arts. What we actually meant was eye gouging, grabbing onto ankles, holding players back, a bit of elbow work, and a whole bunch of stuff that I just don't know about because I never played up to any decent level. Ashwin, you got any examples of the dark arts?
The word you're looking for is he's a very experienced player.
Yes.
No, look, rugby's always been about, you can take those obvious ones, obviously. Can I say obviously enough times in a sentence? With the holding the ankles, the jersey pulling, the little off the ball shoulder and the like. So you've got that side of it, as you say, referred to as the dark arts by the experienced players. And then you've basically got, obviously, the adjustments of the rules, and then understanding the rules and manipulating the rules and working your way around the rules, which is basically a metaphor, if that's the right term, for life, isn't it? There's the rules and you work your way around them.
Well, yeah, but every other sport, it's kind of, you don't say, oh, the team are doing, what a good team, they cheat well. What effectively what we're saying is they push the limits well. Well, what we're talking about there is basically being offside, cheating, grabbing players around the ruck to slow them down, cheating, running, dummy running, and basically blocking players, or in other words, cheating.
Actually, I'll just chuck in a real good one there. The referees, I don't actually understand why they don't actually pull up, is that a ruck forms. The ball's at the back, but the halfback doesn't have the protection, particularly if he wants to do a box kick. So you get a couple of the forwards, it will come in and act as the pillars off the side of the ruck. Now, haven't they put themselves in an offside position because now they've joined the ruck, but they've gone ahead of the ball to act as a block. So they weren't originally part of the ruck.
True. I mean, Line Break Rugby says football is deceptive in terms of diving, but rugby is all cheating. And I think, and yet here we are trying to say players should be role models and decrying certain types of cheating, but actually saying other types of cheating is good.
It's the lie versus the white lie type scenario, isn't it? There's good cheating and there's not good cheating. So a punch in the face is bad cheating.
Nowadays,
but a little bit of a jersey pull here or there is good cheating. And that's just being experienced.
Depends on who and when, doesn't it?
Well, obviously, if it's your team that's had their jersey pulled, it's just like, oh, blue murder, quite appropriate, blue murder, sort of thing. So, but if it's your team doing it, it's just like, oh, hey, that's just the game.
That's what I'm trying to say, though. Is this really what we want our game to be? Do we want our game to be basically how much can you cheat, and the team that cheats the most basically has an advantage to win?
Look, I personally would like to see all these sort of niggly things taken out of the game, and for it to be purely about the skill in the rugby game, as opposed to the jersey pulling, as opposed to the ankle holding, the foot trips, which we also saw on the weekend yet again. And for some reason, no official saw it, just the people watching. But, and it's like, so I suppose, I'd like to see all those elements actually taken out of it. I don't think there's any requirement for it, especially these days.
And I think that's part of the problem. I mean, Nigel Owens, one of the things he said before is that he can spot an offence at every single breakdown. It's just whether he blows it or not. And he tries to only blow when he thinks it's affecting the flow of the play.
But look, this is obviously a bit of a, you have the guys that are just there to watch. I mean, we're rugby fans. We love the game sort of thing, right? But you've got the guys that basically see it as a movie and they're going on as entertainment. So they don't want the whistle blowing every 5 seconds. But my view is if the referees blew the pee out of the whistle in the first 5 minutes, you know what Nigel Owens said, he could blow an offence in every ruck. Well, that would stop because they know they're going to get blown. The only reason that there's an offence in every ruck is because they know that they won't get called up on it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a bit like, to me, the jackling at the moment. 90% of the time, a jackler, as soon as their shoulders are below the hips, they're not supporting their weight. And they're putting themselves in a dangerous position for clear-outs as well, to me.
It's frustrating as buggery in terms of, not better than hell, is it really? But anyway, buggery, the fact is that, he's such a good at pilfering the ball. He's not supporting his body weight. You're dreaming. It's just like David Pocock. Yes, he would probably be the best pilferer in world rugby. But the reality is probably 70 or 80% of the time that he's jackled the ball, as they call it these days, jackled the ball. He was not supporting his own body weight. He was using some method to have his body weight supported. Unless he can get in the splits position, which he can sort of do. He gets his legs quite far apart. He does do that. So big ups to him. And that's why he can get his body down very low to be able to get in position. But most of the time, no, he's actually using somebody else to support his body weight. Now, the reason why I picked on David Pocock is because, as I said, he is still probably the best in the game at jackling the ball, pilfering the ball. That's why I picked on it. If he's the best in the game and he's not supporting his body weight, there's no way that second, third best and everybody else is doing any better than he is.
Yeah, and Jack goes, it would turn people off the game if refs blow things every ruck. It would. But the point is, we only have to do it for 2 weeks, and then all the players would learn, and they would stop doing it, and we wouldn't have to blow it every ruck, because every ruck would be clean, We'd have quick ball, and it would just be crazy. It would just be mega quick rugby, which from a skills point of view would be wonderful.
I'll give you sort of like, something that happened a few weeks ago. Our friend from Taranaki, Jared Hoata, got a red card for punching somebody and got sent off. Now, he's subsequently been suspended for 4 or 5 games. Do you think he's going to come back into the game and punch somebody anytime soon? Well, no. He's going to be pretty stupid if he does.
Yeah, but that's probably rugby players, isn't it? They're not all bright anymore, are they?
No, but I mean, I was just using that as a really clear-cut example of what Jack's sort of saying, and the fact is that if they start blowing up and getting technical, and then they will start to see that those players won't infringe.
Exactly. So yeah, there's some. Alex, you're right. They get low, so they aren't easy to clean out. That's very true. That's why they do it. But as I say, 90% of the time they get low and they're not supporting their own body weight. They're using they've got all the weight through their arms.
You hear a player penalised. Oh, not supporting his own body weight. He's gone past the ball before he's come back onto it. Well, you look at it, and it's about, I'd say 50. Obviously it's anecdotal, but 50 to 60% of the time, the person that's gone into the ruck, his hands have gone past the ball, and then he's come back onto the ball. He hasn't gone directly onto the ball, which is technically what they're supposed to do.
But they're trained to go past the ball because, hey, that's they get themselves into position much quicker, and it also stops the opposition from getting at the ball if you go past it and over it, which is why sealing off isn't allowed anymore at the breakdown. I mean, that's when I say anymore, I'm showing my age, because that was allowed when I started playing rugby, and it came in during my playing days.
You're allowed to seal off, though. You're allowed to seal off because you could get in, the opposition could get in there with boots and all and ruck you off the ball.
So
that's why you were allowed to seal it off. They had to remove the fact that you could seal the ball off because you can't ruck the individual off the ball anymore.
So basically, you're talking about self-policing here, aren't you? Let's be honest. And
that's exactly right.
We had rucking, and you'd also generally in quite a few games, you'd have the enforcers having a bit of a face-off pretty early in the game to set where the boundaries were, i.e. have a bit of a punch-up. And then you get on with the game. Now, that was there. Would self-policing, if it came back, help to remove some of this sort of stuff, do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
I'm going to go the other way around. I'm going to say no. It would reduce probably about 13 players on both sides from doing it, and there'd be about 2 on each side who would take one for the team. And if they didn't come off the pitch with 25 rake marks on their back, it meant they hadn't had a good game. And so you'd end up with these basically masochistic people who are taking one for the team.
Absolutely. You're right.
So, yeah, it's the self-policing. I know there's always kind of, if we had rucking, people wouldn't be lying on the ball anymore. Oh, yes, they would. Or at least
that's what they used to do. You got people off the ball.
The backs wouldn't be, admittedly. But there'd be one or two forwards that would.
Now, what used to happen back in the day is that when rucking was proper rucking, is the fact is that you're right. You'd have the guy that would go in there and sacrifice himself, but he only sacrificed himself once, twice, max 3 times before he stopped sacrificing himself.
It
was the classic. Obviously, I don't talk about New Zealand rugby. Is that the further south you went, the more ferocious the rucking got. So, and so the best team in rucking was old Steve-O, Cornflake Steve's going to love this, is Southland were the best rucking team in the country.
The old Stags.
Before we had all these nonsensical names for teams, they're just called Southland when Alan Sutherland played for them. and it's just like so you'd get the teams going down to Invercargill, and they'd sort of like, yep, first 5 minutes they'd be bodies on the line. By the end of 5-10 minutes, bodies weren't on the line anymore because you got taken care of. I still think self-policing could well work.
Yeah, well, I think it works for 13 players. Unfortunately, you have the one or two mad players who see it as a badge of honour to take one for the team and to deliberately infringe because, hey, it's helping to slow down the ball. So I think you're going to, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure that kind of works. So basically, it means that everything comes down to the ref. And one of the things we've also seen now is because no one will throw a punch apart from once a season. Basically, with lots of players grabbing each other's jersey, just grinning and trying to wind each other up to make the other person punch. Now, he's not going to, so just cut it out. But the referee, we leave it all down to the referee. So, hey, we've got to, just in case, I've got to try and do that because I want to try and. It's just annoying.
We've seen a little bit of the referees sort of trying to sort that out a bit. Some of the old, where excessive patting on the head when the player knocks the ball on, and we've seen a penalty come out of it a couple of times this year now. But I'd like to see more of it. I'd like to see more of the jersey pulling getting penalised, the old unnecessarily pats on the head, sort of free kicked or penalised. I know Jack's going to disagree and saying, too many penalties, then it'll turn everybody off. It'll only happen for a few games before the habits will change. And you could just imagine if your teammate got penalised for patting someone on the head for dropping the ball, your captain's going to be pretty dark with you for giving away such a stupid penalty.
He is. The other way of doing it is to say, okay, right, look, guys, at the top level, and admittedly, you can only kind of do this for the top level, is every time if you touch someone's head and pat their head at all, you get a 1-game suspension. End of story. And you just go through, right, you patted someone on the head after the whistle had blown off, you're missing the next game. And again, it's one of these things that for the first 2 or 3 weeks, we would have an awful lot of suspended players. And then after that, it would stop very quickly.
Stop. Absolutely.
Because the other thing is that I do not want you banned for the next game.
And because, I don't know, this sort of used to happen, but, there used to be penalties for players if they got suspended and the like. And so the clubs actually they wouldn't get all their pay, for example. So I don't know if that still goes on or not. But, if that is, then it's not just going to hit them with the fact that they're not playing, it's going to hit them in their pocket as well.
Yeah, and I've not heard, as you say, I've not heard of those sort of, whether the pet players get fined internally for that kind of thing anymore. But yeah, you're right. I remember hearing that in the past. But it's been a few years. So yeah, that probably has stopped. I guess, my final point was around the kind of role models kind of piece.
I was just going to go back to the old dummy runners as well. Geez, that has to be cleaned up. How a player can run forward, even if the ball's gone behind him. So the player hasn't run in behind him, but he's taken a tackler out. If he's taken someone in the defensive line out or impeded them, that is obstruction. It doesn't matter whether he was going to get to that ball carrier or not. The fact is that somebody has done an illegal maneuver by taking a defensive player out of the line.
The problem then is,
what's that?
The problem then is, as a defender, all you have to do is to run into an attacker without the ball and go, obstruction, ref.
Oh, look, I think it's becoming really obvious. It's becoming really obvious when the attackers run into the player or when the defender has gone and tackled them and he didn't need to tackle them. I think most of the time, because I've been pulling percentages out of my bottom, 90% of the time, it's the defender has been impeded. I come back to the mauls.
Oh, I agree. I think at the moment, I think it's predominantly the defender is getting impeded by the attacker. All right, and you're right, the 90% mark. I'm saying if you switch the rule round, one of the unintended consequences is going to be the defenders deliberately running into attackers to say I'm impeded.
So one thing that as an attacking team, what you'll stop doing is front running the ball, because if you're not front running the ball, then there's no issue.
But Exactly. But the whole point about front running the ball is that you're
creating a defensive shield.
Well, you're creating a defensive shield, and
Players can get around and take advantage.
You're creating you're creating two options of attacks to make people have to think twice.
The shallow and then out the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did actually quite like Christian's comment here in Facebook, which was I think refs need to stop overthinking the calls, make the call you're comfortable with, don't second guess. And I think I quite like that one. Blow what you feel is right, and quite often you're going to be right. You don't necessarily have to overthink it and sort of have that jersey number or be able to explain it in detail.
It's a classic quiz night scenario, isn't it? You come up with an answer, and then you overthink it, and you change the answer, and the right answer was what you came up with first. And people who go to quiz nights will be nodding their head in agreement because you've all done it, where you've changed it to the wrong answer when the first answer was right.
I think we're showing our generation now. I'm not sure anyone under the age of under the age of 40 goes to quiz nights, do they?
That's a bit harsh. I was going to say under the age of 30.
I was going for 35, then I thought actually I'll ratchet up a bit. So there you go. Let us know in the comments, at what age do people start going to quiz nights? It's somewhere between 30 and 40, but let us know in the comments what it is, because we're not sure. These kind of details, these kind of bits of life knowledge are important. So role models. This is the next bit. A whole bunch of people go, oh, they shouldn't be role models because all they are paid for running around with a ball, and that what they do outside that, or what their opinions or how they behave, shouldn't be relevant. And if you're not doing this, i.e. putting a brand or a corporate name logo on a jersey, you are quite correct. As a non-sponsored person, you are basically being paid. You are basically a very good person at throwing a ball around. You're not necessarily a very nice person or a very good person at anything else. But the problem is, as soon as you put a brand on somebody and someone pays you to wear that brand, they expect that you can't, or the way you behave reflects on that brand. And so that's why they become role models, because of the actual brand association. No one ever explains it that way. They explain it on, but kids look at them. Blah. No, the real reason is someone's paid money to be associated with the behaviour, and therefore the behaviour's got to be good.
Yep.
So here we have a game that sells itself on teamwork, respect, and so forth, where actually all the players, the first thing they try and do as they walk on the pitch is cheat. And you've got to wonder, actually, as a brand, do I want to be Gallagher sponsoring cheating rugby, or
Well, let's face it, nobody talks about the on-field cheating, do they really? Unless it's something that's rather violent in nature. The reality is they just don't talk about the cheating aspects. It's almost like it's accepted in the part and parcel of the game. So it's more in terms of the role model, brand association is something happening outside of the confines of the rectangle that is the grass field.
Christopher from the UK goes, quiz nights are pretty popular with students in the UK and in Hong Kong, apparently. Well, there you go. Students have changed since my day. We never went to quiz nights.
That's where the beer is.
Yes, but the problem with quiz nights is you've got to be able to actually say something and be able to write still. After a few beers, my writing disappears pretty rapidly. Anyway, but I agree with you. The way it's been sold, the way it's packaged, people don't talk about that don't talk about rugby as a cheating sport. Cycling is a cheating sport because they take drugs. Athletics is a cheating sport because they take drugs. Those are seen as cheating sports. Whereas rugby, which in the UK is the highest number of drug sanctions out of any sport in the UK is rugby.
Wow.
And yet rugby is not seen as being a cheating sport, which is amusing. To be fair, all of the majority of those are amongst amateur players, not professional players.
And interesting, just going back to sort of like we've just been talking about the legalized art of cheating on the field, so to speak. And it's just like soccer's seen as a cheating sport because of your Neymar type scenarios, and it's just like non-soccer lovers will just look at that and going, that's cheating. And it's a big deal. But as we come back to it on the rugby, it's just like, oh, that's part of the game.
And that's, I guess it's a cultural thing. And we'll see, but all these people getting high and mighty of, oh, this guy cheated, or oh, this guy actually had a quick celebration dance because like Zebo did. I've not actually seen the clip, to be honest with you, but apparently Zebo scored his try, had a bit of a dance to celebrate the fact that he scored the try, and then immediately got told off by Nigel Owens for celebrating the try too much in the face of the opposition, and it was considered demeaning. But all the other cheating that goes on in the game is fine. Just don't dance and don't celebrate too much.
Don't rub it in.
Don't rub it in.
Don't rub it in. Just coming back to your role models aspect of it, and it just drives me crazy the fact that people say that the players are role models for the kids or whatever, and I think your description of role models is absolutely spot on in terms of they're role models for the brand that they're representing. They're not role models for the kids. They're getting paid by a brand to represent them because they're on their jersey. So they're a role model for that. But they're not a role model for the child. If the parent is sort of subjugating their duty as a role model to their child to a sports icon, there is a problem there. The role model for a child is their parent.
That's where it starts. But there are, let's be honest, the children and also young adults aspire to be sports stars or rock stars or whatever. That's what they want to. That's what they want to be. And there's very much, and then there is this element of, well, those are the behaviours that I need to do to become that. And so there is an element of that, but
again, it's too many people are sort of putting the responsibility onto somebody else. At the end of the day, the primary role model for a child, a boy or girl, is the parent. Now, if you're the correct role model for the child and putting the right thought patterns in your child's head, then they will be able to ascertain the level that a rugby player should be used as a role model. They're going to be able to say, well, yeah, I love the way he plays the game on the field, but some of his actions off the field are questionable.
Yeah, no, I agree that the majority of it should come from the parents. The problem is at the moment it's the word should rather than does.
Yes.
And yeah, there are definitely parents who aren't as active in their child's upbringing as they should be, and hence they also blame teachers as well. Hey, it's all teachers' fault. My child doesn't have the right behaviours. Well, it all starts at home, I'm afraid, and then
it's your teacher's fault that they haven't learned to read, write, or do maths. It's not your teacher's fault that your kids are acting like a pain in the backside. But we're digressing into other social areas here, apart from rugby.
Oh dear me. So yes, that's basically that's the main bit. We've kind of churned our way through that, but yeah, essentially every single rugby game involves cheating. Just about every single player who walks over that white line cheats in just about every single game. There are very few players who don't cheat at some point during a game, we need to get off our high horse a little bit, I think, at times around some of these things. But there is, it's interesting and it's sad also about what is what is acceptable cheating and what's not acceptable cheating. And I think rugby just gets on its high horse a bit too much around the unacceptable cheating side of things because, yes, as I say, every player cheats in every game.
And it's a good point to be able to say, Ben Lamb, the world saw what you did on Saturday. Everybody apart from an official saw what you did on Saturday.
Oh dear! If I know, I should have switched it to just you on the screen doing that. That'd be brilliant rather than having it both of us. But anyway, my editing is somewhat off. Now, if you'd like to help me improve my editing, what you can do is become a Patreon of DrivingMaul, so I can go full time, actually learn how to do this properly. For as little as $1 a month, you can help support this. As you heard at the beginning of the show, Ashwin is unemployed. I'm going to be unemployed in a couple of weeks as well on the 16th of November. So head over to patreon.com/DrivingMaul and you can become a Patreon for as little as $1 a month. And if you're thinking, Paul, you know what? $1 a month really isn't going to make any difference to you. And I'll tell you, I've got 20,000 followers on Twitter. $1 a month from each of them would make a big difference to me. So yes, it would.
And you might be able to throw a few dollars my way, and that means that my children could get 3 rice bubbles instead of 1 for breakfast.
Exactly. Then and I should actually learn how all this kind of presenting stuff is supposed to work. At the moment, it's bumbling along. Wondering, what is this YouTube thingy-majig? Oh, yeah. It's what the youngsters use. So we finished half an hour early, but hey, you know what? That doesn't mean we're going to stop. We're going to keep going because, hey, what do you think of the signings by the Rebels? Have you seen that Quade Cooper is heading over to the Rebels?
Good signing. Good signing. It's just like, try and spit it out, Ashwin. People, just basically jumping on Quade Cooper and rubbishing Quade Cooper. The guy won a Super Rugby title, by the way, if nobody remembers. He made it to a semi-final at a Rugby World Cup, which, many Northern Hemisphere sides still haven't achieved. So he's not. Burn! Now, the fact is that obviously a lot of what I see is comments out of New Zealand, especially when they were talking about, Quade could come join the Blues. Personally, I didn't want Quade at the Blues, but that was for other reasons. And the rubbish people are talking, the guy has got rugby skills. And they've still got Guinea obviously down at the Rebels, and then chuck in Quade Cooper. That forms a very good combination. It's a Super Rugby title winning combination.
I was going to say, they've played together a few times.
They've played together a few times, that's right. And the other thing is that, you then Debrasini, who's been playing pretty well for Northland. So I think the experience of actually playing for Northland, getting some confidence up in managing the game a bit better, is going to be good for the Rebels as well. And the fact that you've got a backup first 5, they'll probably push him out to second for the game, I suppose, or even fullback. I'm not sure, but that's a good round.
Yeah, no, it should. Okay, and we should be back. Sorry about that, folks. We had a bit of a internety thing, connection issue. But we should be back. I'm just going to pull up a tweet I forwarded earlier that had the potential lineup for the Rebels next season. So I was going to read through this for you. So 1, Chetra Faulkner, Wallaby. 2, Jordan Elisi, Wallaby. 3, Jeremy Ainsley, Wallaby. 4, Matt Phillip, Wallaby. 5, Adam Coleman, Wallaby. 6, Luke Jones, Wallaby. 7, Richard Hardwick, Wallaby. 8, Isi Nazarani, Imminent Wallaby. 9, Wolgenia, Wallaby. 10, Quade Cooper, Wallaby. 11, Mikara Corabetti, Wallaby. 12, Matt Tumua, Wallaby. 13, Reece Hodge, Wallaby. 14, Jack Maddox, Wallaby. 15, Dane Helmet-Petty, Wallaby. So basically, the Rebels will be able to field an entire international team in their starting 15 next season.
Keywords. You said starting 15. And that's where they had the problem, right? They usually started to have problems around the sometimes early as 50-minute mark, but 60-minute mark, where their subs started coming on, and that's where they would start losing their close games in particular. Well, so But
So let me just read the bench for you then.
Okay, read the bench to me.
16, Hugh Roach. 17, Ben Daly, Wallaby. 18, Laurie Weeks, Wallaby. 19, Angus Cottrell, Wallaby Tourist. 20, Ross Haylett Petty. 21, Harrison Goodard. 22, Billy Meeks, Wallaby Tourist. 23, Stefan Nyavolu, Wallaby. So again, another 3 Wallabies and a Wallaby Tourist, and then 2 Wallaby Tourists on the bench as well. Okay. It's not quite Crusaders depth, but it's a start.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, then it just comes back to they'll do it well in the Australian Conference. Sorry, Hugh.
They could, yeah. Well, yes. I mean, it's on paper that's an impressive team. Now, I mean, clearly, injuries, a couple of injuries, and suddenly, it's a problem. But if they can keep that lot fit, and they can actually gel, the Rebels could potentially be a decent side next year. We're not saying win Super Rugby, but decent side.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, it's interesting when people start talking about rugby in Australia. What they really just need to start having is some good quality rugby, obviously, but close games between their Super Rugby teams, and I think that'll start to build good interest in the area. The Rebels go along beating the Waratahs and the Rebels Brumbies, then they're going to get good interest starting to happen and build around the rugby in Melbourne area anyway.
Yeah, and they need to build it up because they need to prove that axing the force was the right option rather than Melbourne. To be honest, and with World Series Rugby supposedly coming live next season, it's going to be interesting to see how it compares to that. So World Series Rugby now. Have you heard the teams that are lined up?
No, I haven't. This is our friend Andrew Forrester's competition, is it?
Yep. So Mr. Twiggy. So rumour has it, and this is not officially announced, that it will be obviously a team from Perth, i.e. the Force, a team from Western Sydney, a team from Auckland or North Harbour, to be more precise, a team from Fiji, a team from Singapore, and a team from Hong Kong as well. So as far as a 16 competition, that's not a bad lot. The Fiji, that gives the Fiji Drua people a place to step up to, or at least play more rugby.
Yep.
As you expect, a bit like the Force will play in this World Series and also in the NRC, because the World Series I think is run at the same time as Super Rugby, and the Fiji Drua I would guess will be able to do the same. North Harbour minus their Super Rugby players would be able to, and obviously bring in a couple of perhaps the Auckland players who'd want to go full time, and counties in Auckland, that's I can see the West Sydney one. I understand West Sydney is apparently got a very big island community or Pacifica community. It's big in the old rugby league, and so I think there's lots of potential there for rugby union side. Apparently, just be interested to see whether they can actually execute it. A couple of top league teams as well. Apparently, Panasonic Wild Knights plus one other. We'll talk about that. New Zealand Rugby and ARU blocked the other teams. Okay. As nothing's been officially announced, it's all a bit up in the air and it's all rumour. Maybe some of those have been. Maybe I would be very surprised if New Zealand Rugby would block things because any extra cash, considering they're supposed to be shipping 5 million a season in overspend, you'd think that any cash coming their way they'd be happy with.
Well, the other thing is that it would be a good thing for the rugby in the Auckland region or the Blues region, because one of the biggest issues that they've had is basically player retention. If they don't get a Blues contract, they're off somewhere, and it's hard to especially the young players, and then they pop up somewhere, and 2 years later they're a star, and it's just like, well, yeah, they probably would have been a star anywhere they went, and if they'd stayed in the Blues region. As the fact is that you've got to give time to develop. They don't, as a 20-year-old, Rico Ioane's a freak. He played at 19, but most of them don't really start performing at that top level until they're 23, sort of 22, 23, 24. So having a team that will be North Harbour that you can chuck a few Auckland players in there over that Super Rugby period as well, players coming in that they want to keep within the Blues area, then that's going to be great for the area, actually.
Chris Edwards Bay is saying that they wanted a Mitre 10 All Stars, which, considering we had a provincial side play against the British and Irish Lions just last year, it's possible to put that side together. Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
And if you've got a whole bunch of guys who their choice is club rugby and having to have a real job, to rugby players, I'm sure playing rugby is a real job, but club rugby and having to have a 9 till 5 job, or playing professional rugby and then also playing Mitre 10 Cup professional rugby, I know what a lot of players would choose. They'd choose to play for the provincial Barbarians team as a professional rugby player. I mean, that's a dream, after all.
Absolutely.
So interesting that's if that was the stumbling block. But as I say, it's all rumour at the moment, so we're not really. So who knows what's really going on behind the scenes.
It makes sense, though, in terms of if somebody is willing to, like what you alluded to, in terms of if somebody's willing to throw some rugby in the Southern Hemisphere region, which we really desperately need, so that we can hold on to these players instead of basically they're all just going up to the Northern Hemisphere to play. So if we can get a competition going that can run parallel to Super Rugby, makes a lot of sense. To come back to a comment that you made earlier, the Australian Rugby Union sort of proving they were correct in keeping Melbourne, we know that they were wrong. Force should have been the team that they'd kept. We all know that.
You are right. Yeah, I mean, the Force should have been kept. The Melbourne Rebels should have been cut. Totally agree.
Absolutely.
Anyone who's ever been to Melbourne, I've not been there a lot, but I was there for the Lions. What's that? 5-6 years ago now. And when you're driving around town, and you see that every single kindergarten have got Aussie rules posts up in their playground, you realise that trying to break into that with the third footy, and I know anyone from Northern Hemisphere will go, what do you mean by footy code? But the third footy code, then you can see that actually it's not going to be, it's going to be a bit of a struggle.
Yep. Especially when the code is struggling around the rest of the country.
Yeah, exactly. So they're much better off in the less competitive, smaller market of Perth than the larger market but high competition of Melbourne. I've got a quick question in the Twitter saying where we're from. We're in New Zealand, if you want to know, but obviously I'm English. I'm wearing a Lions jersey, and Ashwin is Kiwi in his Auckland jersey. Oh dear, it's been a long day.
Can't call me Aussie.
Any day.
I'm offended.
Every day's getting hit.
Because everybody gets offended by everything these days, so I'm offended.
Oh, you snowflake.
I'm offended by that.
Oh dear.
Look, I mean, the other thing that, the biggest thing about the Force being that, overlooked in favour of the Rebels, Melbourne, was the fact is that there's a massive South African expat community over there. There's a massive New Zealand expat community over there. And they, South Africans basically understand rugby and they follow it. With New Zealanders, that is a bit 50-50 because they've all sort of watched a bit of the other oval ball code over here, as well. So, there is but the reality is that you got people that know the game, understand the game, that will go and support the game. So it's this like little stupid decision by dropping the Force instead of the Rebels. I understand why they had to do it. It was a commercial thing because they'd signed an agreement with the guys that were backing the Rebels. That was the problem.
It was a purely money call. Unfortunately. And when you say the other code, you mean rugby league for those of you from the Northern Hemisphere who are kind of probably looking a bit bewildered.
Don't say that word on our program. I'll start swearing. It'll be less of an offence.
Look, you're already reducing all advertising revenue with your swear words so far. Never mind. Thank you. There goes another 50. There goes another half cent of the 10 cents I made. I would have made on this show. That's pretty much everything I was going to talk about. To be honest, any more for any more?
Well, sort of like there's a few games coming up this weekend that we could have a yarn about.
Okay, cool. I mean,
it's the first game that you're going to on Friday night.
So
rematch.
I've put my predictions out about 2 hours ago.
Yep.
So they're already out there, and so you go ahead and then I'll tell you. So start off with the Waikato versus Otago. What's your prediction to start off with before we get into details?
I think it'll be close again. It's Geez, I don't know if you're watching that game against the Waikato played against Northland last week, and it's almost like they'd turned off for the season, sort of thing. And then they did come back. They got a bit lucky with the yellow card. I thought it was 50-50 personally, but anyway, and that really got them back into the game. They scored 3 tries while Sam Knock was off the field. But it depends on whether Waikato turn up. Otago, they've got nothing much to lose, so they'll just throw it around, I'm guessing. But
so the knock thing was for repeat offences, wasn't it?
It was for repeat offences, but you couldn't say that Sam Knock, to me, had actually got back past the offside line and then got on the ball.
Oh, okay. So whether that was actually a penalty or not, I understand. Yeah, okay. But
exactly. As opposed to repeat infringing. But the other thing was the repeat infringing actually came after that yellow card because they were under pressure so much under their own line. That momentum really came up, obviously, for Waikato after that happened as well. So,
well, I mean, Waikato had all the ball, they just couldn't break them down in that first half and gave up some fairly soft tries, to be honest. But to be fair to North Harbour, fair to Northland. They executed well when they had those opportunities. They spotted the gaps and went and did them. But they were definitely tries that you could tell Roger Randall was very angry about letting in his post-match interview. So Waikato were not happy with their performance, even though they did score 6 tries or something. Was it? Anyway, to me, if it's a close game, then I think there's only one winner, and that's Otago. I don't think Waikato, every single one of Waikato's wins this season has been by 10 points or more. I think by 12, or I think actually 12 is their smallest winning margin for their 6 victories, or 7 now, including the semi-final. So I'm not convinced that Waikato know how to close out a tight game. So whereas Otago, they have closed out tight games. They've also lost big, but then again, they've lost big to Canterbury, Tasman, and Wellington, and a lot of other teams have lost big to those teams. So there's no shame in that. But they won their semi-final by just a single point with the last kick of the game. They've won other games by they beat Auckland by 5, I think it was. I think they won the Shield by 5 points. So they've won a lot of tight games, and so I think they know how to close out a game. Whereas I'm not convinced at the moment that that Waikato can. So my prediction is Waikato by 10.
Yep.
And it will either be a 10+ win for Waikato or a handful of points for
Otago. Yeah, they won't leave Sevu Reese out for any indiscretion for this week's game, will they?
No, and it's depending on who you listen to, depends on kind of why he was left out. As to was he just rested or was that actually a disciplinary?
Oh no, my understanding it was disciplinary.
Oh, okay, they've gone public with that. Okay.
Yeah, my full understanding was a disciplinary reason, and it was around the court case he was involved with, and it was one match that although he sort of got the no conviction sort of thing, blah blah blah. They still gave him the one match stand down because of that. My understanding, well, I could be totally wrong.
My understanding is he's also has taken himself out of the Dwayne Monkley medal possibilities as well.
Oh, okay. By himself, that's good. I mean, like that he did it himself, I should say.
That's just what I'm hearing. I'm not sure that's necessarily true, but that's why I heard that from somebody or overheard a conversation somewhere about that.
So which Super Rugby franchise is going to pick him up? Because Connaught's ripped up his contract.
They have.
Because of it.
Now his problem is that, and this is okay, not his problem. The problem with getting a Super Rugby contract is, because being Fijian isn't a problem, but is his nationality. He's not a Kiwi. He's Fijian, and so he counts as a foreign player.
So
it's a matter of
Fijian, is he not eligible for the All Blacks?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
So I think he needs to. So unfortunately unfortunately for him, he counts as a foreign player. So the question is, which franchises have still got haven't filled up their foreign player allocation? And I don't know the standings of that, so I can't say where he might end up. Clearly, the Chiefs would be the most obvious one.
Yes,
but he's been here a couple of years now. It's not the first season that he's been very good. So yeah.
Yes.
But now, but if you think that people like Michael Leach have left, now Leach was, whilst he might have been Kiwi in a number of ways, eligibility-wise, he's Japanese, so that might free up a space. Who knows?
Yep, it'll be interesting. So then we come to the Saturday game.
Auckland versus Canterbury. So the new format of Premiership and Championship started in 2006. Since 2006, the home side has won every single final.
Okay. Good to hear.
So there you go.
I don't know why that's good to hear, but it's fantastic news.
So if we're talking stats and history, clearly it's home victory all the way.
Yep.
And you've got to remember that Canterbury, this is their 10th final in 11 years.
Yep.
And they've won all the other 9 they turned up for. Now, all of those were at home. This is their first away final in that 11-year run. Their only other away final they lost before that run started. It comes down to, do you think home advantage is enough, or do you go with the more experienced finals team, which is clearly Canterbury?
Yeah, look, I think if you allowing for experience, the team's quite different from last year's one for starters. It feels like for Canterbury, that is. You'll probably then rattle off a whole bunch of stats that proves me wrong, as you normally do. But I'm still sort of thinking that the Auckland side's actually is actually a better side than the Canterbury side. And only just, not a big gap in it. The only thing there is the fact that we don't know who's available. Do we know whether Romano and Whitelock get to stay behind, or are they off to Japan as part of the extra players going over? At what stage do the extra players go? Because if the extra players go before the game, then it's Auckland's to lose, basically. Because the big factor for Canterbury at the moment, in the way that they've been winning the games, is Romano and Whitelock.
Okay, and let's just be clear here. We're talking about Luke Whitelock, not Sam Whitelock.
Yeah. Or George.
Or any of the other 5 of them. Yes, I know. But yes, we're talking about Luke Whitelock here, so the number 8, rather than Sam Whitelock, but Lock, who now Sam Whitelock will be in Japan preparing for the Bledisloe Cup game. And obviously we'll be playing in that game, I assume anyway. We'll talk about who we think is going to get selected tomorrow. But so you're talking about Luke, and apparently Luke Whitelock is one of the better defenders, because I read an article in one of the online websites today, basically talking about that Kiri Iwani is going to be available, whereas actually I thought he wasn't. I thought he was going to be unavailable because of his selection with the Maori All Blacks.
Yep.
So he is going to have to play the game on Saturday. On Sunday, essentially get on a plane to New York and then play again next Saturday in New York. So he's going to be, in pieces. Sorry, not in New York, in Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah. Where the Maori All Blacks play in the USA Eagles, or the USA men's first team. So I didn't think he was going to be able, but reading this article, they were talking about stopping him because he ran all over or through Wellington last weekend, and was the difference, or very key, or one of the key differences between the two sides. They were talking about Luke Whitelocke being one of the best defenders, and so therefore being one of the better players to be able to negate Akiri's power play.
But so who's going to when do the extra players go to Japan?
I don't know. It sounds like they're both available.
That sounds okay. All right. So if he's available, that means Luke Romano's available, which means Brett Cameron's available. Joe Moody, one of the All Black props, still playing. He played last week.
No, there were players who played last week who will not be available this week. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
So the fringe All Blacks in the first 32. The 32 obviously will not be available, but other players will be.
The 32 won't be available.
Correct.
Oh, which have already gone. Yeah, right.
They're all gone. They're all gone to Japan.
It's the extra 19.
It's the extra 19 that's the problem.
It's the extra 19 that we're referring to, and we don't know when they leave.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I've gone Auckland by 3 because I think it's good. I think it's very tight, but I'm going with history and the fact that the home side always wins.
Yep. And as I said, look, I mean, I actually think that in terms of
actually maybe Auckland by 5. Sorry.
What's it? Yeah, they've got the confidence that they've beaten Canterbury down in Christchurch earlier in the season, and that was only a few rounds ago. It wasn't like it was right back at the beginning of the season either. So there's that, and the fact is that again, it already stated that it'll really come down to who's still here. If they haven't got a Whitelocke and a Romano, Auckland will steamroll them.
So there you go, folks. That's the calls for this weekend. Thank you very much for joining me, Ashwin.
No worries.
I'm going to wrap things up. As usual, click up there to subscribe. Click down there to subscribe to the All Blacks edition, because we'll be back tomorrow night with the All Blacks edition. And then also on Saturday, Ashwin and I will be on his sofa doing the live post-match reaction to the Bledisloe Cup Game 3. And then up here and down here are 2 videos that you will absolutely love. So do go ahead and click on those.